Hi, my name is Craig Cecilio. I'm the CEO and founder of Diversifund, a wealth platform that serves the everyday investor. This is my YouTube series where we talk about trending topics such as Fintech, the wealth creation space, and the capital markets industry. If you're interested to hear more about these topics, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the story of Diversifund, why I created it, and a little bit of the history behind it and the obstacles that we encountered growing the company. And it kind of, the idea fermented, I think, from my childhood, but really came to fruition from the Jobs Act of 2012 when that was passed. It was the Dodd-Frank bill that gave rise to opening up alternative investments in investment vehicles to non-accredited investors. So that was kind of the first time in history that you're able to do these public offerings and offer it to non-accredited investors. Really kind of was a monumental change in the private markets industry to raise capital. And it also gave the opportunity for people to, from all walks of life, to participate. And that kind of hit home for me. It really hit home in a way that maybe some people didn't really hit home with, but coming from a working class family, both my parents were middle class, and growing up and seeing in a pretty wealthy, predominantly wealthy area, and seeing everyone have these opportunities, and my family didn't have those same type of opportunities that everyone else had. And just it's kind of the dinner table talk with your parents and hearing their frustrations in life and, working really hard and not really going up that wealth ladder or not having the opportunity to do that. And I was fortunate enough that when I was in my early 20s, I started servicing institutions and let's just say wealthy family offices and wealthy people learning about investing. So when I think it was 2012, 2013, when I first heard about the Jobs Act and some of these things that were in the pipeline, and that when they became effective, I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to take the knowledge that I learned about investing and taking that and applying it and giving people who haven't had those opportunities before that opportunity. And this was just kind of like, not only did I want to create a business around this, but really at the end of the day, it kind of lit a fire in me. It's like a passion of mine to do this stuff. And I kind of put it together, and, we're going to talk about the obstacles. So I don't think I have enough time to talk about the obstacles. So we'll talk about a couple things. It's like, yeah, you have this great idea. You have experience doing this before. And then all of a sudden there's a whole technology element to it. And then all of a sudden, you're putting all these parts and pieces together and trying to develop a company around it. It was quite a wild ride. So one of the first things that we had to do is we had to qualify through the SEC to put this on our platform. And that process, when no one has done it before, took some time period. So let me go back to like this got passed, this act got passed in 2012. Well, the actual regulation that we use, the first company didn't go in effect until I believe it was 2016. So that's 4 years later. So that's when the first person took that to market. And that was like, that's crazy. That's 4 years after the fact. So that was a big obstacle for us. We didn't even incorporate until the end of 2016. And we didn't try our first, I think it was 17 or 18 is when we applied to the SEC, in which it's called qualified to get it qualified. And that didn't really go into effect to us at the end of 2018. So that's a kind of a 1 year, 2 year time period, like kind of building a company out, kind of me going out and finding a co-founder, building a staff around that and putting all those pieces together. And then getting this thing qualified to the SEC, which was an obstacle. So you had to come out of pocket and pay the attorney's fees, which at this point in time, there weren't a lot of attorneys who've done this before. So now you're paying top dollar. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to get going here. And then you don't have the ability to really experiment or test. And which I mean by that is your marketing, your technology, your product, to see how the customers are going to interact with your platform. And so you really can't do that because there's a lot of compliance involved. And so that was a giant obstacle to get going. And I think it was like 19 was June of 19, July of 19 was a big day for us. That's when kind of the automation kind of took over. We were able to lower limits to $500. The whole process was automated. There was no salespeople involved. There's no people on the phones. The whole thing was just kind of you come to the site, come to the app, and the whole thing is there for people to transact, which is, there's a whole nother story behind that. We could talk about why I believe that's more beneficial than talking to a person, whereas some people would like to talk to people, but I feel like there's more benefits of making the whole thing automated, and the whole process automated, because there's a lot of savings involved, and there's a lot of other extraneous variables, which I don't have the bandwidth to talk about. Would love to talk more about that down the road. So putting that whole thing together took a few years to do that. And then, okay, this is kind of your and then once you do that, it's like, how do you build a community? Now we're talking about, we're rocking and rolling. We're going, it's 2019. It's great. And then we put together a plan. Okay, let's build this thing out. Let's make this thing enormous. So I went to work to do it and put together a plan. And we're like, okay, we're going to launch this major campaign, and we're bringing all these employees and stuff. We're at the office having meetings. Then boom, a pandemic hits. So what are you going to do? You're like, okay, things. What are we going to do? Are we going back to work? What's going on? I have people. Recruiting people come in the office, we have all these teams together, and lo and behold, we're thinking we're going to be back to work a month or 2 or 3 months, and the whole environment changed. And what we did, though, is kind of everyone looked at me because of the founder and CEO of the company. I said, what are we going to do, Craig? What are we going to do, Craig? And I'm like, well, we're going to, like we said with our plan, we're going to 5 times our marketing budget. We're going to try to get as many customers as possible. And we are going to go ahead and really drive this platform. And I believe in these kind of downtime periods where there's a lot of uncertainty goes on, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of Cohen's out there who talks about that. I think we all heard about that one. I think JFK said that that symbol, the Chinese character for crisis, is danger and opportunity. And that's kind of been misinterpreted, but we'll just kind of, for this conversation, saying that crisis is danger and opportunity, the 2 signs, and individually that's what they mean. And I was like, hey, this is an opportune time for us to go and get some customer acquisition and get out there and build relationships with some partners there to build it up. And so we answered that with about 2,000 customers going into the pandemic. And after the pandemic, a couple of years later, up to 30,000 customers. So it was quite an experience to do that, and learned a lot. And that was a major obstacle too, because when you do one thing, it's like cause and effect. There's another reaction. It's like, okay, now all the employees are remotely, they're working from home. I have to deal with that. And then I have all this massive amounts of customers now, and how I'm dealing with all those things. So that was quite a wild ride. Here we are, 2022. So I don't want to go back and talk about all those obstacles from 2020 coming out of that, but it was quite a time period. But here we are in 2022, whereas I'm seeing that, again, we hit a new environment where there's a lot of inflation, and there's a war going on. The appreciation of assets have gone through the roof. And so there's a lot of uncertainty out there. And then we have interest rates on the rise, and we have another election coming down the road in November this year too, which might change some things overall. So, I could go on and on about the obstacles. There's always obstacles thrown at you, whether it's on an annual basis or a daily basis. But here's some of the topics I like to talk about. And if you'd like to listen more about that, I'd love to have you join me. Just hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel, and we'll have much more to talk about. Thank you.